Rob, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man. It's really great to have you here.
Happy to be here, guys. Looking forward to it.
So Rob Howard, you are founder and CEO of Kindred Motorworks, and I was going to introduce Kindred as a cutting-edge resto-mod manufacturer, but I'm worried that really doesn't do it justice. I'll just pose the question to you. What is Kindred Motorworks?
I mean, you almost look like it's almost like a new manufacturer, really. I mean, we do take these old cars and fully modernize them, but we're different because we don't do anything custom, right? So we spend a couple $1 million for every model doing all of the engineering to get these cars to drive perfectly. I was in Detroit yesterday, put 200 miles on one of our Broncos, 80 miles an hour on the highway, right? And you don't get to that without full engineering. So I think that's probably what's different about us is we've invested an awful lot of effort into the engineering of these cars, and that's real different than a typical resto mod, which is generally off-the-shelf parts.
Yeah, resto mod, I mean, the term itself is
it's almost like nebulous. A dirty word, right, Jake?
Well, it's not only that, it's ill-defined. Like you have restoration shops and, custom builds. Then you have some manufacturers like Roof, coming from the Porsche world, whose vehicles actually feature their own VIN numbers and their own certifications, right? Yeah. So where would you say Kindred kind of fits in there? Like when you buy one of your vehicles, are they registered as a 1970 Ford Bronco, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's important to us. Absolutely. The nostalgia is an important part of the brand and the company. So every car is an original car. For our Broncos, we have a boneyard out back, which is really fun to see.
I want to talk to you about that because I think, we'll get to that. It looks like that's Chris's dream, is like scouring Marketplace to try to find all these, which I'm sure must be an entire job description or a team for you guys. But
it is. Yeah. But I mean, for us, it's like the originality is really important. And there's a chain of custody on these cars on what defines if it's an original vehicle or not. Right.
Interesting.
And for the Bronco, it's really the frame. You have to have that frame, but it has the VIN stamped in it. And, there are some bad actors out there that actually do VIN swapping, which is like illegal at the federal and state level. Right. But it makes the restoration a lot easier if you have a frame that's like wider and brand new and delivered to you, as opposed to us, where we have to restore the frame, about 10% of which can't be restored, by the way. We buy the car, it's like, this isn't recoverable.
Wow.
But anyway, we had to re-weld that thing and add strengthening members and strip it down and redo it. But the originality of the car is very, very important to us. I would hate to buy, a classic looking Bronco that was VIN'd 2024 when I go to sell it one day. I just don't think it's the value, right? Whereas for us, the nostalgia is important, but also the value accretion of having an original is really important.
When you look at the modernization of things,
FCP Euro is an online retailer of OE, OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, Audi, Volkswagen, and more, their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert-assembled kits to make shopping simpler. Whether you're doing a suspension overhaul or an oil change, these kits really take all the guesswork out of the process. No more wondering if those bolts are one-time use stretch bolts or if you need a gasket to go with that. Just select the kit you need and you're good to go. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters. With the opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FCP Euro is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with the free shipping option. We at Overcrest have been working with FCP Euro for years and can vouch for them. They're real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love, while making sure they put you, the customer, first. Check them out today at FCP. Check them out today at fcpeuro.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49. Nokian Tires has officially launched their newest tire, and it's one we're especially excited about, as it's tailor-made for the type of driving we like to do here at Overcrest. It's called the Surpass ASO1, and what sets it apart is it's a high-performance, all-season tire. It's made specifically for drivers who want the most out of their cars without sacrificing capability when the roads get slick. We know all too well how unpredictable the roads can be, whether you're out on one of our rallies, one of your own adventures, or just running to the grocery store. And let's face it, a car can only perform as well as the tires it's on. That's why the new Surpass ASO1 is so great. It offers the grip of a dedicated performance tire, but won't leave you stranded if the road or weather gets rough. Not only does it come with a 55,000-mile warranty, it also offers Nokian Tires pothole protection. If you happen to damage your tire beyond repair, Nokian will replace it for free. Check it out at nokiantires.com/surpass.
I think of like many people see vintage cars as like artifacts, right? They're artifacts, there's memories tied to them, and there's culture and time that has passed, that's gone, and it's like irrecoverable, like all the stories that have been told. And I think one of the examples that, and this doesn't really necessarily apply to you, but it's kind of a talking point, is there's an old bus that was in California, and it was in the fires, and it sat on the side of the road, and everything around the whole bus burned, right? Everything got burned down, and but here was this little old Volkswagen bus sitting there. And the first thing I see on Instagram is somebody's restoring the bus, and it crushes my soul to see that someone is restoring that bus, because it's a little damaged, but it's like, the paint's just a little bit burned, and it would just be so great to like keep that story and not change it and just leave it because it has a story to tell. Yeah. And when you modernize things, sometimes how do you feel about modernize these things, and you're basically hitting the reset button? In my mind, you can tell me if I'm wrong, of course, you're hitting the reset button on the stories of these vehicles, right? So it's like the story starts over because it's new again. How do you like feel that kind of emotion?
I mean, I think you're wrong in some ways, right in others. I think that let's look at that bus. The original bus had 46 horsepower. It has no seatbelts. It has no headrest. It has no stereo. It has no heater. It has no air conditioning. You have to plan ahead to stop the car. Like the brakes are that bad, right? The shifter's like this long lever like that. So you look at it and it's a joyful creature, but it's in the freaking garage, right? So the joy of owning it is not there. The joy of driving it doesn't exist at all, right? So there's room for people to have those as like an asset or an investment or a piece of memorabilia on the mantle, this one in the garage. My ethos is there's more joy in actually being able to drive the car, and you don't give up the stories, right? The first thing you would say about that bus is the history of the bus, even if it was modernized, right? But you also are now able to drive it. In our world, we put disc brakes in there, rear cameras, 3-point seatbelts, headrest, Bluetooth stereo, air conditioning. It's electric. So it's like you actually can enjoy owning it and driving it. It's not in the garage or on the mantle. Like it's actually something that you can use in your life. So I bias towards experiences, and experiences create stories, right, Chris? So some of these stories are historic in nature, but I think we can create a lot of new stories with that bus by getting it out of the garage, out on the road.
Yeah, I had this thought when I was, I took a 72 or 73 Ford Pinto Squire wagon on a road trip, and I bought this car, and it was so mint, and it had wood paneling on the side, and it was gold, right? It just looked so cool. It even had a Pan Am sticker on the bumper. It was rad. And I'm like, I got to go scout for the Overcrest Rally, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my kid in there, and we're going to drive across the country. And I think about a week before I left, I started to get like this kind of twinge of anxiety that I was taking my daughter, who's like, my daughter's obviously the most precious things in the world to me. Yeah. I ended up, and I just was scared. I ended up doing it anyway, and I think it was okay. But there is a case to be made for modernization, especially when it comes to like brakes and stuff like that. Even the Mercedes that I have here that just left, I had to put upgraded brakes on it because there was no. I went on the rally and I was like, I could potentially just drive off the road. The brakes just aren't there. So there's a lot of case for that. But I also feel like some of the things that make cars special are their faults, right? So it's the things that are wrong with them. So if you look at like a 911, its fault is that the engine is in the back, right? It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing that the engine is in the back. But that does drive the character of the car a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is the balance for Kindred, at least, is this balance of curating the modernization and maintaining the nostalgia. So, like, there's not a lot of reason to keep. Nobody's nostalgic around the brakes of these cars. or the suspension systems,
Yeah.
frankly, or the steering systems, right? So now you're into three major systems of the car, and that's a lot of work, the modernization piece. So, but when you get into the dials, the gauges, the more basics of the interior, that's where you spend all your time, right,
Yeah.
in the car. I think that's where you really want to pay attention to the curation of the original versus modernization. And everybody has a different opinion about it. Kindred, we spend a lot of time on it, and then we make a decision and we go, right? And that's the car that we build kind of over and over again. But hey, I'll also say there's room for the numbers matching crowd here, right? I just get bummed out about it because the numbers matching car is like,
They
it's
don't go
hard to
anywhere.
enjoy,
Yeah, they don't go
and it
anywhere.
starts to become a piece of art and
Yeah.
something like an investment class. And that's so wrong when
Yeah.
versus looking at it as something that you want to drive with your daughter, like you almost
Yeah.
don't want to put miles on it.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
I
that.
think
it's a machine, not a Picasso, right? It's a machine
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's something we certainly can align on and, just come to from, differing ways, whether it's driving it as is or being able to refine it more to make it so that you can actually use these cars as they're meant to be driven. I feel like we got ahead of
one thing,
ourselves.
Jake, before you move on, and my brain is just on this, and I just want to say that the stars made. I think we can find some common ground here for sure, but in the end, for me, whatever it takes to get somebody out and driving and exploring in their vehicle is really what it is most important. Everybody has different tolerance levels for what they're willing to put up with. There are guys out there that'll be able to drive that bus with no brakes and just be fine with it, and that's cool. But there's a lot of people that just do not feel comfortable with that. They just don't, and rightly so. They're death traps. They truly are. So whatever it takes to get somebody, if it takes Kindred to build something for somebody that they can enjoy and get pleasure from, I think that's really what it comes down to, and that's the most important thing. There's all kinds of different shades and Venn diagrams of enthusiasts, and some people like this thing, some people like this thing. As long as in the middle of that Venn diagram is driving and experiencing, that's what matters to me most, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'd put it to joy, right? It's the joy of driving and the joy of owning the car, like creating that experience. You can have that. I know for me, like I've been restoring cars for 25 years, but I've been disappointed enough times when I was done that I really appreciate that Kindred can just deliver me one that I can just enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So like I've aged into that spot where I'm like, I spent 4 years restoring my 57 Chevy wagon for my kids, with my kids. And when I was done, I was like, man, the brakes suck on this car. And the carburetor, I gotta spend 2 minutes warming it up, which fumigates the whole freaking house, So for me, I've kind of moved on. I'm like, I've done enough of those now. I just want to drive the cars. And I think I'll probably actually come back to doing another restoration because I enjoy working with my hands. But I agree, Chris. There's common ground here, and it is just creating joyful experiences. Some people get it from working on the car, right?
Yep.
And that's a big piece, I think, what you're referring to, right? Some people will never work on the car. The only way they can get it is to get it delivered to them in a condition where they can actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not all martyrs like you, Chris, who have to be, going on a road trip through Death Valley, 132 degrees. I was with you, and no air conditioning in a 72 911. But that's how you do a road trip. Damn it.
As I age, Rob's right though. As I age, and things start to hurt, and being hot sucks more than it used to. This is a young man's game, driving through Death Valley, picking up hitchhikers. I don't know if I can do that anymore.
I think I'd rather go to prison than do that with you, I think, probably.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It felt
Yeah,
a little
it's
bit
sort of like
prison.
being in a cell with him. Yeah. All right. Rob, I want to get more into, the cars and the company itself, but I want to know a little bit more about you because you talked about, you obviously were restoring cars or into cars, but you didn't exactly come from the automotive industry per se. Can you tell us a little bit about the man behind Kindred?
Yeah, I think I came back to it. Frankly, I'm really lucky to be in the position I'm in, right? So I grew up in Philly, and when something broke in our house, we had to fix it. It was the TV or the toaster or the car, right? So I learned just enough about cars back then, how to replace the starter motor and fix the rust and things like that. So I just kind of removed that intimidation factor of working on cars. Is all that was. And then as I entered my career, I was an engineer and then a tech CEO. I just craved working with my hands, and I went back to cars to do that, right? So for me, that was when the wife and kids went to bed, over the last 20 years, I went to the garage. Instead of watching Shawshank Redemption again, I went out there and like restored cars because I wanted to work with my hands, you know.
You
And
got
I
to put a
found it
TV in the garage so that you can watch Shawshank Redemption while you restore the car.
totally should. Just the voice, just the voiceover is all I really need to hear. But you know, so I had this common vein in my whole life of cars in the background, but it was never my primary career. But luckily, for my career, I learned all about supply chain. I learned all about building technology. I learned all about how to get access to capital, which was required to build our production facility here, right? And so I got to the point where it all came together at the perfect time, and that is this isn't like a business plan from somebody that thought this was an open spot in the market. This is someone who is living the restoration experience, how hard it is, how many different vendors you have to use, and how difficult the end product is. And I had these other experiences that kind of lined up for me to be able to do this.
Yeah, I want to get into kind of what makes it so unique, and I think it is a product of kind of where you came from. But first of all, on more a fun note, what has been in Rob's garage then? Because if you're out there every night working on things, you mentioned a '57 Chevy.
Yep.
I know there was another Chevy pickup, which I don't know if that's the one referring to. What other hallmarks have you had throughout your career that kind of maybe drive some of the design and direction you're going in?
Well, I started off with Mustangs, right? And there's different kinds of Mustang people. You know, I'm a 67, 68 guy where it just got
Yep.
beefy enough, but not so beefy that it was obnoxious. It's kind of where so I did several of those. And my first restoration was super light. You know, it was like
Yep.
basically improving the interior. And the next one I got deeper, right? Where I actually replaced the engine and the whole drivetrain. And then the next one I did that 57 Chevy wagon I mentioned. It got even deeper, like all the way down to every bolt.
Hold on, I need advice, Rob.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I'm lusting for a Mustang right now. Should I get a V6 and build it up, change the axles and the knuckles and the brakes and all that stuff that needs to be changed? Or I'm sorry, inline six. I'm used to the one Jake had a V6 as a young man, so I always default.
Well, that was high school car. Jake.
I know. But or should I get a V8 car? Help me out. I keep going back and forth on this.
Here's my opinion. Like the V6 or the inline six is much cheaper, right? So if you're going to replace the engine anyway, get that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's really no reason. If you're going to try and keep that original 302, you know, then you obviously need to go right for the 8 right away. Yeah. But I personally replaced the engine both times, right? Because I wanted a more reliable car that would lead me towards thinking about doing the 6.
I was at Road America, and these Mustangs were flying around the track with their small block V8s and just screaming. They had carburetor, like I think they had IDAs on them, just these massive carburetors, and they just sounded insane. So now I'm just hooked. I've never had a domestic muscle car in my life. Never. You know, it's always been European stuff. So I'm in. Sorry, Jake, I'm interrupting, but
no, you're all good.
I need advice.
We could spend all hour talking about this, because I think if it's true, Rob may know more than I, but pre-67, the 66 was actually technically a lighter chassis, and I think they're narrower. It's like 911s where they went wide body, and so you want a pre-67 notchback, because then it's cheaper.
Yeah,
that was a 6-cylinder.
Yep.
Then you can put in like a built 289, something that just absolutely screams, and make it into, you know, a road version of a race car. Yeah, I'm into that. Yeah. I'm into that. Let's do it.
That's what we're talking about.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, so Rob, how does an environmental engineer who then went on to build supply chain technologies, I mean, you're into cars, but that's a big leap between this being your hobby and like, oh, I could figure some stuff out, to saying, all right, I'm you know, going full in, making a full company here around this.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It comes back to like a notebook. In my garage, when I was restoring my cars, I always had a notebook. Like, here's all the parts I have to order, and here's all the parts when they came in. And that's a freaking blizzard. You know, you order parts, and then you get them in, and you don't look at them for like 9 months, and then you realize it's the wrong part, and your DOA, you got to start over again. You know, it's like
got 50,000 of those little plastic bags with a part number written on it in a cardboard box.
And then I can't read the handwriting in the plastic bag. Like, that's exactly what happened. I still have tons of bags with handwriting I can't read. You know, so I'll remember this. So anyway, I just knew that I could improve the process. When I looked at that notebook and saw like how much went into keeping track of restoring the car, And then I went and visited lots of local restoration shops, and it's basically a master mechanic. It's all in their head, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and it just limits the ability for them to produce any volume of cars, but also high quality car. You're dependent on that one individual to keep track of all the stuff. So it really was a realization in my garage that, like, man, there's a lot going on in this notebook. And if I use technology to keep track of the supply chain and the work instructions, like for our bus, our electric bus, 5,000 steps to restore that vehicle, to tear it down
Jeez.
and restore it back up. There's like 1,250 parts. We know the torque on every bolt, and it's not in the head
Wow.
anymore. It's in our software system. So that
This
when the
is like
technician
OEM
does
spec.
it,
That's
yeah,
like how a manufacturer knows how many steps are in things. That's really impressive. How did you accomplish that task? How did you document this?
it's a lot of work, right? So we choose one model, we bring it in, tear it down, build it up, tear it down, build it up, tear it down until it's freaking perfect. And then we document every step and make sure the supply chain is robust. We have a lot of inventory in the back here to make sure we don't run dry. So it required patience, and investment. What's fun is, like Rivian, for them to do a new car is like $5 billion before they deliver one car.
Yep.
For us, we were able to do one model. It took a couple of years, but now we've got it down to about 6 or 9 months where we bring a car in and the team of engineers, the new vehicle development group, can tear it down, build up in about 9 months. We'll say we get all of that done, and it goes into production. It's in production forever, and then we do the next model, right? So as the years go by, we add to our lineup, and we get better and better at using parts across the cars, and the quality of the cars gets better and better and better because we know don't do that again and change the work instructions so we never do it again.
Have you guys come across a car that you started to take apart and you're like, nah, this is not the car for us? Like, is there anything British or something that you guys have started to take apart and you're, man, nope, Lucas cursed this thing, I'm out?
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, the cars that are more screwed up are better for us. Like I look forward to one day doing some of the Jaguars where they're just like a notorious nightmare, and just reinventing them and just getting rid of all the wiring harness entirely and putting in a Kindred wiring harness, right? So in some ways they're more appealing when they're a pain in the ass. I think the harder one's the space, right? So that, like, the BMW 2002, I'd love to do, but it's just so small, that we
Just
have a
stay
lot of work.
away from them, Rob.
Yeah.
Stay
You
away
just hit a
from them.
nerve, Rob.
Oh
Jake
God,
hates
no.
2002s.
No, not the 2002s. There's
That's
a
a
long
story for
story
in
there.
person. We'll make sure you have a beer in your hand for it. The listeners know what we're talking about. We'll save it for another time.
So this whole system that you kind of built up, I was reading online. I think you're referring to, it's called Blueprint, right? My entrepreneur in me kind of was wondering, like, is this really the real product behind Kindred, and Restomods are simply a byproduct? Like, this seems like it is a huge software stack and system that you've kind of created from the ground up.
Yeah, we had to build it from scratch. We're not afraid of building technology, which is important, right? I kind of alluded to how important that part is for the business. It's not something we sell to anybody else. So it's something that we use to manage our work instructions and our supply chain. So what it does is it unlocks the ability for us to do it the same way every time, and it unlocks the ability to kind of grow in scale. And that's what local shops can't do, right? So you get somebody that's really passionate about an individual model. They're really good at it. And by the time they figure out where to buy the parts from, it's years have gone by, and the thought of doing another model is like, no way, So yes, you're right. Like, I guess from an investment community, that's how they look at it, Jake. They're like, oh, wow, they have technology that no one else has, and they know how to build it, and they have built it. And they had the ability to put new models out on a regular basis. This is something different than what we've seen out there before.
Let's talk about the vehicles that you're actually, we thought when we first were introduced to Kindred, Chris and I, we of course saw the Scouts. And when you go out there, you see, you have the Volkswagen bus. There's also, the Chevy pickup you have there. Did you start with the Bronco, or what was kind of the first that Kindred really started developing?
It was a Bronco. Yeah, I mean, we knew there was a market for it. We knew we could probably do it higher quality than what you see out there today. We love the Bronco, honestly. I have one in my garage. I have Kindred number 1 in my garage, which I drive all the time. So that was the first one, and it was a disaster. Like Kindred number 1, I wouldn't sell to anybody.
Right? I
Right?
do think it's interesting, though, like this and this goes to the kind of the core of the whole resto mod industry, is this resurgence in vintage, or this interest in, older brands that seem to be coming back. Like Scout Motors is bringing back, International's old brand. And, Ford released their new Bronco model in 2021, which I'm wondering if that kind of coincided with the Kindred model and if that influenced any of it.
Well, it's not a coincidence that every model we do has or will be introduced by the original manufacturer again, because there's so much kinship around these cars. There's so much community around it, and I think the brand is powerful, right? So we get to benefit from that. We benefit from the brand. We kind of borrow the brand in some ways from the original manufacturer, but they've redone almost every model that we have in our pipeline has already been reintroduced. And for me, it's good. That means there's a lot of them that were built. There's a lot of aftermarket parts available for me. And there's a lot of buyers that are still passionate about that specific model.
Yeah. And I want to get into, let's talk about the Scout, for instance, or sorry, the Bronco. I have a Scout on my mind now because I just sold a Scout. So I'm in the same vein. It was certainly not as nice as a Kindred Bronco, but what's unique, I think, about
it was not.
Kindred.
It was not.
What's unique about Kindred is you guys offer both, the gas and electric powertrains, where, a lot of these Restomod companies or other manufacturers that are going electric with older vehicles, they're specifically wholeheartedly 1 foot into the electric camp. And what led to kind of this almost duality of approach, or offering both?
Well, I knew I needed to build the production facility, whether it was electric cars or gas cars. I needed to build the brand as well, electric versus gas, and the technology. All that had to happen independent of whether it was going to be gas or electric. And the reality is I was nervous early on that the supply chain wasn't available for the electric side, right? Can we get the motors? Can we get the batteries? Can we get the controllers, et cetera? So, we introduced both gas and electric, and the gas beat it to market because the aftermarket parts were there easily, right?
When did that EV thing start? When were you looking for the batteries and controllers and stuff like that?
Yeah, we started in 2001 is when we started sourcing
that
those.
Was a tough time to be finding that stuff.
It was. It was DIY time, right?
Yeah.
And now I'd put it into kind of like emerging supply chain. Like it's not mass market yet, but you can actually now get access to motors and batteries and things like that. So it's more reasonable now. Where it's really hard though, Chris, is like the battery boxes and cooling systems. And just imagine the HVAC system. Like you don't have a radiator any longer. You don't have a pulley anymore. So we had to build from scratch, electrically, compressors that are electric and heaters that are electric, and the cooling system had to cool the cabin and the batteries so you can get level 3 charging, right? So there's a lot of work to get the EV platform built. And I'll tell you, this is not a DIY thing, right? Like you should not be buying a DIY electric conversion from anybody, right? This needs to be engineered.
Chris and I went down a rabbit hole probably right around 2001, whereas guys were hacking together Nissan Leaf motors and, batteries out of...
2001 there, mathematician Jake. A little after 2001.
2001? No,
I didn't even know you.
2021, sorry.
Okay.
You know what I meant. But yeah, no, it's not something I would try to get into for sure. And I'm just kind of dumbfounded by the entire process when you say 6 to 9 months for the development cycle for these vehicles. I mean, this is like prototyping and manufacturer OEM level testing. What goes into that, and why the heck go through all that struggle rather than just saying, yeah, we're gonna restore these vehicles to a level?
We're willing to do the work because we know once it goes into production, it'll be in production forever. Like it's annuity revenue for us, right? So we're willing to spend that money up front to get it right. But I'm gonna give an example for our bus. Like the suspension on those buses is a joke. They really don't even exist in a lot of ways, right? So we cycled through like 5 or 10 different options. We ended up with the Corvette suspension on the front end of that bus, right? So these are aftermarket parts that are well proven, and we modify them a bit to fit. And you got a great suspension setup, better than any other bus in the world, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we do it, because the vehicles are more joyful when you're done. You can actually use them; they're more functional, and it's a supply chain that works for the long haul, and it's something that will be around forever. So we're willing to put that work in up front. The EV side's a lot harder, right? We had to test benches and lots of trips to Death Valley. We probably saw you there, Chris, up to Tahoe for testing in the snow. So there's just like a huge amount of testing to get it done. The cool thing is once you do it in one car, you get to use a lot of it for the next one, especially on the EV side, right? And that's important.
Looking for the best app for navigating your next adventure? Look no further than Onyx Off-Road. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. The app features trail ratings, detailed information, and a discover tool to help you find trails near you. Onyx Off-Road also includes public and private land boundaries, so you'll always know where you can legally off-road, camp, and explore. Want to stay connected? The app features a cell service layer, so you can plan your route with service in mind, which is great for emergencies or just staying in touch. And for added peace of mind, there's a wildfire layer that helps you avoid active fires and smoky areas, keeping you safe and aware of current conditions. With tools like Route Builder, waypoint marking, real-time updates, and route sharing, you're fully equipped for any adventure. Try it for free for 7 days and hit the trails with confidence. Download Onyx Off-Road today. Take a moment to also give a shout out to all the Drivers Club members. If you're not a Drivers Club member, you are missing out. We have, as you know, our fall rally is coming up in October, and we also have Sports Car Vacation Land and Camp Overcrest happening in just a couple weeks. It's happening and coming up very quickly, and Drivers Club members get a discount, and they will be the first to know about all sorts of new merch drops that might be coming. So head on over to overcrestproductions.com/drivers club and check it out. All the awesome exclusive content. We have whole back catalogs of history stories and episodes that haven't been released to the general public. Check it out. There's a lot of stuff. It's awesome to support the content creators that you like. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, that means it might be us. Check it out.
Has there ever been any fiber of your being that goes, why don't we just build our own car? Because you see like the whole skateboard concept of, you see all these EV companies popping up around the world, right? It's much easier. Well, you tell me if I'm wrong here. My perspective is that it is much easier to conceive a vehicle as an EV than it is to conceive a combustion engine car, just because of the number of systems. The supply chain obviously is a lot more readily available for the combustion engine side of things, between, Bosch or Denso or whoever. But the EV stuff just seems so much easier in my distilled brain of this is an RC car with a controller and a battery and like this, because you extrapolate out, it's just that. But you can just put the batteries on, put the motor on, and it's just easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of that is like why some of these EVs drive all the same. It's like they're just kind of they're standardized, right? But I think there's a couple things there. To build a new car, you got to crash test it, right? Like it's a whole nother thing, right? And you have to buy like train loads of steel and build the systems to create a fender. It's just an incredible, as evidenced by the amount of capital Lucid and Rivian and the others had to raise to get it done.
Yep.
Those days are kind of gone. I don't think you're going to see many new car companies coming because of the capital requirements required to make it happen, right? For Kindred, it's very different, right? We're borrowing the existing designs, and we don't need to do crash testing. We don't need to buy train loads of steel, so we can get these new models out in a quick basis. I do agree with you when you build a new car. I'm not a believer in the skateboard. Particularly for old cars. Like they're so different. You can't apply one skateboard across old cars. For new cars, the concept is cool, but no one's done it. Everyone's
Why? It seems like it would almost be like the new Carmen Ghia, or not the new Carmen Ghia, the new Carmen, or these coach builders. Someone could just make the skateboard, and then the coach builders all over the world could buy them and then make cars, and it would. I thought for sure there was going to be a renaissance of coach building.
Maybe. I mean, there was a company called Canu down there in LA that was their concept, and they were trying to go to the original manufacturers, use my skateboard, and it can be frontwards or backwards, and just, there's a lot of like trash heap startups that did that. And I think what happens is you have to be flexible at some point, and the skateboard doesn't let you do it, right?
Yeah, everything is kind of a compromise in design at that point.
Yeah, you end up. I don't want to be too critical, but you end up with like the Audi, A7 or the Q5 or whatever. It looks just like the Porsche Macan. Yeah. It's the same freaking car.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
MQB platform or whatever it is.
Your skateboard is going to end
it
up with the
is.
same freaking car over and over again. That's no fun.
Yeah. To be
Yeah,
fair,
and
all those crossovers look the same to me. Like
Yeah.
as
well,
if I, it's like that meme with the dude from Spider-Man where he goes like this, and you can't see it, and he puts his glasses on, and it's like a completely different thing. Yeah, if I don't have my glasses on, every crossover looks the same. Might as well be a Murano.
there's good reason for that, and we talked about it. It's crash test regulations and all these other like aerodynamic pursuits. Like you just have to build it a certain way in order to compete, more or less.
That's right. The range is a big driver of that.
I
right?
suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of regulation, you obviously don't have to meet, brand new OEM regulations for the vehicles, but you are talking about doing all this extensive testing and R&D. So how far do you go with it? You mentioned having we're going to put rear view cameras in our vehicles, which of course now is mandated. So where did you kind of decide to draw the line as far as, okay, well, we're going to try to make it safe to this point, or, make it as compliant to this point as far as these go?
Yeah, the regulatory isn't a driver for us. It's more about I got little kids, I want these cars to be, when I put my kids in the car, I want 3-point seatbelt. I want a headrest. I don't want to run over anybody in the driveway, right? I want a rear view camera, right? So the rear view camera, it costs $50 to put it in once you figure it out, right? So let's just do the hard work and get it done so that we can knock off as many of these issues as we can to get the car out of the garage. Like all those reasons why you don't drive these old cars, one of them is the safety parts, right? So we try to go as far as we can with that. You can never do airbags in old cars. It's actually illegal. The airbags are like dangerous explosive devices. You can't screw around with them, So the
first airbags were super dangerous. It's like at first they were bad news. They're scary.
Yeah, so I mean, for people like us who love old cars, you accept that you're not going to have airbags and they're not going to be as safe as a brand new car. But we can around the edges to make sure we take care of both convenience and safety for these cars.
Sure. You guys are obviously ramping up production. You have a huge facility, which I'm going to ask about a little bit because it's super cool. But I want to get back to, sourcing. And as the demand increases, how do you source all these donor shells? And again, is the position open that Chris can fill where you're literally just scouring junkyards and marketplace to find old Broncos?
No, because all I'm going to do is steal their stuff and buy it. No.
Chris, we'll sign you on, dude. What we found out? There are people that love every model around the country and they collect donors for us, basically.
Oh, yeah. The hoarders. We see
the hoarders. They're hoarders. So it's amazing. We thought that this was going to be a much bigger lift than it turned out to be. But we basically say we have a guy, that helps us source these cars. And for every model, it's a different guy in a different location. So and remember, we are not a mass market company, right? We're luxury good. Our price points our craftsmanship is expensive, right? So we're buying, we don't build more than 100 of any model in a year, right? So Kindred's a little hard to get, frankly, right? So we're not aiming, and we can still grow by adding new models, right? So we don't need to or want to sell thousands of any one model. And when we get to future models, there's some models you should only take the ones that are dead. Like you should never convert some cars off of gasoline unless they're dead already. Then you can convert them to electric, in my opinion.
Sure.
So what are the new models we're looking at? I think that's an exciting question. It has to be exciting for you saying, okay, there has to be a fleet of vehicles that you're like, all right, here's next on the list, right?
Yeah, next on the list is a sports car for us, an electric sports car. And then just behind that, the 4-door. And I don't know if I could tell you what they are quite yet.
Those are embargoed.
Yeah, because I want to make a big deal of the new model announcements,
Jake, what do you think would be if you were going to do a sports car?
Right.
What would it be? I can think of one that I think would, and it's not my favorite car, but I can think of one that would be really good.
Well, here's where my mind
might be too
went,
modern.
Chris.
Go.
No, okay, he liked Mustangs growing up. That's a classic sports car, but
yeah, but is he going to bring his own emotion into his own company?
Oh, 100%. That's why he's the CEO. That's why he started it. You can make those decisions.
I feel like my brain just went like Miata right away.
Yeah,
old
they still make
Miatas.
them. He just said you can't kill them off if they're still in.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would say 911, but that market is already saturated with all these weird trash pile startups like he's talking about. I
Well,
don't know,
maybe
maybe
they
it's
could do a
that.
911 better, because
Yeah.
most of
Chris
them,
and I
most of
both
the.
have old long hood 911s, so that's kind of our close to near dear to our heart. But all right,
And
we
we
won't
so
we
that
won't
what Jake, that might be what makes us more emotional about this restaurant thing, is because the 911 has been ruined over and over and over again by people that have far less taste than Rob. You know, they're
right.
ruined over and over and over again by and just gosh, it's so awful. Like, let's put these god awful LED headlights. Sometimes they can look good, but a lot of times they don't, and they put on these ones that look like I okay, sorry, I'm going off the rails here, but yeah,
No, yeah,
911s
there's
have
something
done
to be
too much.
said about having actual design and taste and timelessness in a design and a resto mod.
Let me ask you this, Rob. When are we going to start getting into the 90s and doing this stuff? Like, I just have a manual sitting here on my shelf here, and I see it's like an E36 M3. You know, like these cars, like the door cards are falling off. They're parts are becoming more difficult to find, but there's still a lot of them out there in various shapes and conditions that could be an excellent candidate for something like this.
I
Are
can't
we
wait.
into the 90s yet?
I can't wait to do them. So the cool thing, I love the debate of like, what are the cars in the 90s and harder is the 2000s? Like,
Yeah.
what are the cars that are immortal, right? Because those are the cars I'm after, the immortal cars, right?
Mhm.
GTI, like a GTI, like a Ginster yellow GTI, an
Ooh, yep.
E36 M3. Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
there's a Grand National probably
Ooh.
eventually be one.
Yep.
I think actually some of the generations of Forerunners are
Oh yeah.
probably there. The Land Cruiser is one that I
First
can't.
gen
I have a Land
Viper.
Cruiser. I have an '88 Land Cruiser, and it's dying a slow death.
Oh.
It's so underpowered. I can't wait to do that model in particular. So
So
I,
I
yeah.
we can shift gears and stop pressuring him about future models, but uh, in your background, Chris,
Isuzu
you know.
Troopers right here.
Oh yeah,
Isuzu Troopers.
there's Chris's resto mod right
There's
there.
there's none of these anywhere. Good luck.
That's why we'll never do that car. Probably there's no survivors.
There's no survivors. This one I put a TDI in it because the engine was so bad. So that's my resto mod.
Love it.
I think it's really cool. I do a lot of deep dives into random history and stuff, and your building that you guys have, your actual warehouse, your factory, is almost a resto mod in itself, or certainly fitting. So, Chris, did you hear about this? They have basically what is located on an old World War II shipyard on Mare Island. Tell us about the factory, because that I feel like is cool enough that we could spend a whole episode talking about that.
Yeah. Now I live in the Bay Area. It's expensive real estate, So I did hire a real estate person to find a building to do. I had a shop where we started, did all our prototypes, and I was ready to go to a big production facility. It was such a bummer. I had to fire the real estate agent. They couldn't find anything. But I was driving, across the top of San Francisco Bay, and there's a bridge, and I looked to the right, and there's all these abandoned buildings. I'm like, how is this possible in the Bay Area? And sure enough, it was a Navy base that had been abandoned in 1995. 50,000 jobs to zero.
Oof.
It went. And half the island was burned down by the local kids, and the rest of it was like this mix of mystery and disappointment and whatever. You know how that mystery of an abandoned building. So I started knocking on a couple of the occupied buildings and I said, that's the one I want right there. And they're like, really? Turns out I was ready to build a production facility somewhere else, cheaper, like uninspiring, frankly. And this building was 100,000 square feet. It had been empty for 30 years. It had dirt floors. Trains used to come down the middle of the building and drop off all the freight to build the ships for the war.
Oh, cool.
And I had the patience, basically to kind of fight through the bureaucracy to get access to the building. And the cost of the building is the same cost it would have been to do it in Nevada or Texas or Arizona, which is where everybody else goes, So we're super lucky. I mean, they're restoring the island now, the Mare Island here, bit by bit. We restored the building together. And now we're restoring these cars inside the building. So it's like this. I couldn't have dreamed that would work out as well as it has. So it really represents the
serendipity as good
brand.
as it gets. I mean,
Yeah.
that is like perfect for what you guys do. The parallel is so perfect,
It's
truly.
on
I
point.
think we'll do it again. I think when we grow out of this building and add another building, we'll go to another market that has a love of cars and has an old building that needs to be brought back to life in a neighborhood that wants. We create great jobs. I'm super proud of that. That we can help the community. We're selling very expensive cars, so it's harder to get around that from an ethics standpoint. But from a job creation standpoint, we're creating great manufacturing jobs, craftsmanship, here in the U.S.
Would you consider Europe? I mean, there's got to be a ton of, especially in the EV world, it's getting we have some friends that have, hot rods and cars and stuff over there. It's getting, especially in like Germany, it's really hard to be a guy that likes to drive old shit. It's becoming really difficult in many places.
Yeah, Chris, their regulatory environment's tough, right? So their job is to kind of get old cars off the road, right?
Yeah.
For environmental reasons and safety reasons. Their regulations are designed to kill these old cars, frankly, right? And so really the only path there really is importing them here from us, where we have a long history of keeping these cars alive and great engines and everything else. So the regulatory hurdles are brutal in Europe around this. Not in every country, but Germany in particular is a challenge.
Speaking of regulations and looking to the future, I mean, are all of your future models you're thinking going to be electric going forward? Was the Bronco simply because you could do it both with a traditional, Coyote motor? Not
We'll
that
see.
Coyote's traditional, but
we'll see. I mean, I reserve the right to do additional gasoline models, but the reality is that the EV has been winning out in the design process, right? So the maintenance is lower, reliability is higher, cost to operate is lower, the cost is a push, performance is better every time, right? And then there's the sustainability factor, which is real. So, and then you put on top of that, Kindred's a little more unique as our EV. There's really no one else that can do what we do on the EV side. We've invested in all that engineering work, and I'm not seeing anybody else who's done that in the aftermarket in the vintage world. So, we're really committed to the EV side at this point. Our future lineup is EV. At some point, we may come back to the gas models because some cars aren't quite right for an EV.
I'm interested in that and how it pertains to what you're thinking for sports car. But again, we'll leave that alone until in-person conversation.
Yeah, sports cars are tough. I mean, for a gasoline sports car, you're up against, for a 911, you're up against Singer and Roush and others.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge.
That's why I said saturated.
Yeah. And then you're at $1 million price point, and then that's not something you can enjoy. Like, I have no interest in that.
Jake,
you can't enjoy $1 million car.
Fox body Mustang.
Oh, see, yeah. I said Mustang.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those.
Yeah, that 85 5-liter T-top. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
North Carolina, the home. I just scouted for the rally. The home of the Fox body Mustang, I might say.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And they all have it's kind of sad because you have the abandoned areas of the West where when something is out there, it's just dry and it's just sitting there and kind of acrid and just there. Out on the East Coast and out in these hollers and in these deep vegetative areas, there's Mustangs that are just covered in moss and they're just slowly returning to the earth. It's kind of
they get pulled back.
yeah. But that'd be the cars for this.
I want to finish a little bit on the actual what is the process like to purchase and design a Kindred, and it's what I want to get to is how involved is it to the point where what are you speccing out and literally getting your hands dirty? This is super unique when I read this.
Yeah. So it's fun. I mean, we this comes from my experience. I love working on the cars, so I wanted to give that opportunity to customers if they wanted to come into the building and work on their car. And it's eased along we already have the work instructions in the iPad, right? So,
I suppose.
Jake, I'd give you the iPad and you could come in and start working on the car today, So about half our customers make the effort to come out here and actually work on their car, right? And for some of them, it's like an Instagram photo, but for others, they won't freaking leave, because it's such a joyful experience. So anyway, I'm a very hands-on person, and I also found, my wife bought an Audi. We went to Germany and picked it up and drove it around for a month in Europe, and I didn't give a crap about Audi until I went to their factory. They gave me the tour. They fed me. I picked up the car. They opened the door. There it is. And I have a loyalty to that company that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I felt like that kind of matched pretty well with our types of customers. So that's something pretty unique about the customer journey when you buy a Kindred.
Yeah, it's the old mechanic meme. You see it like on the old wall of the mom and top shops. It's like, if I fix it $100, if I have to help you fix it, it's $200 or something. I can only imagine, yeah, what the techs there on the floor like, looking at what the customer did, and hopefully you don't have to go back to it. But
we do some of that stuff for sure.
very cool. Well, I think it's super cool what you're doing with Kindred, and can't wait to see what models come out next. Chris, do you have any other questions? Or
No, I'm excited to have you guys out to Sports Car Vacation Land. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. It'll be great.
Are you coming out yourself, Rob?
Yeah, I think I'll be there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, that'll be exciting. Yeah, very cool.
Well, we'll see you then.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk, guys.
Yeah, take care, man. You be good.
Yeah.